Welcome back to Becky Amio Horse Training. We are on ride 18 on LR Blue Ambrose, and he has not had a day off, so we've been riding back to back. This is third ride in a row. We're trying to knock out the rest of these rides before the weather gets really, really bad, and I think we have one more 40-degree day in the forecast before we're supposed to get like 5 to 10 inches or something stupid like that. So let's take a look at the weather today. It is 35 degrees. And the feels like is 36. Check that out, that's a first. All right, so I'm going to use my arena again since I can. And I'm gonna work on the same stuff we did yesterday. I'm gonna try to take from where we started yesterday and build on it and add a little more speed again and go from there. And I'm going to throw some poles and some cones out in the arena to give us something to visually look at and work around so you can really see the counter arcing when I'm trying to make some circles with him. And I think we're just going to go from there and see what we can get done today. So stay tuned and let's get after it. The number one thing I want you to see here when I mount up is I tighten up this inside rein. And it bends his head around just a little bit. And I know it kicks his hip over on you, but it prevents him from going straight forward on you. There's a couple different things that can happen there. If they can go straight forward, you're hopping along with them and you're not going to get up there fast enough, or your foot's going to get stuck in the stirrup and you're going to get drug. I never ever mount any other way than how I'm mounting up at this point. There's a lot of folks, older generations, that when they mount up, they usually turn and face the opposite direction when they go to get on the horse, and then they swing up as the horse turns around them. And I had picked up on that one time when I was riding for an older client, and you know, he came from a generation where he rode horses that would try to cow kick him when he got on and off of them. And I flat told him, man, if we gotta worry about a colt cow kicking us when we get on and off, we're not gonna get on that sucker, and he's not ready to be mounted and dismounted yet. So I know I need to do a separate series of the way I mount and dismount and why I mount and dismount the way I do. But I just wanted to point that out from the get-go today. And he is a lot of horse today. I mean, he was ready to go from the get-go, and I needed to ride him down from the very beginning, and he was kind of a fireball. You see him go right into a trot and pick up a lope. So I had to give him a job to do like right now. And he's been ridden now. This is the third day in a row, and so this is what we have in store for us. Every time we make a circle now, I'm going to have him be responsible for his bend. So I'm going to elevate my inside rein. I'm really going to support him with leg in every circle because I want him to keep his frame in the bend. And visually now, I have my poles and cones out here. You know, it gives us a little bit better idea of the size of our circles. You know, rather than before when you couldn't really tell whether they were a 30-foot circle or a 50-foot circle. These poles were set up, I was practicing pole bending on another horse, and they're 21 feet apart approximately. So you kind of have an idea about spatial, you know, how far everything's spaced apart there. And we have something for him to focus on here as we're turning, and him to start thinking about looking at an obstacle and turning it. I'm going to change direction here shortly, and I'm going to change the rein. So I'm going to start applying a lot of right leg on him and start to elevate my right rein, and we're going to change his arc now, and we're going to bend him to the right. And these are all gymnastic type exercises that are designed to stretch, get his attention, get him focused so he can go on and do the job or the task at hand when he goes on to have a career. So this is going to be warm-up. and we need to keep that into consideration as we're doing this, is that this is all warm-up type material we're teaching. Now when it starts to get difficult, when I bring the circle down a little bit smaller, this is when he kind of starts to quit me a little bit. And that's okay. We file that in the back of our memory as a challenging exercise for him. So when he does kind of want to be a fireball, or we need to add a degree of difficulty to our exercise, we can put this back in. Okay, sorry for the edit right there. I think I had to dismount and tighten up my cinch is what I did. But I got back on and I started working on this counter arc thing again. And now that we have some poles out there, we kind of see how imperfect the circles are to start. You know, you get a couple of steps and then you straighten them out again. And in this case, you know, move forward a little bit, let them trot a little bit, and then maybe try to ask for it again. And, you know, you take the opportunity to change direction, change the arc, you know, give him another job. And right there, he was anticipating the turn. And I was setting him up for an inside a roll away, not an inside roll. And I had to correct him, and that's the great thing about this basic handle that I love, is that it really keeps them paying attention to you and listening to you rather than choosing to do their own thing. You know, when you have a horse that is crashing barrels or is jumping out of the box too fast and breaking the barrier, you know, little games like this where you keep them on their toes, you're going to get a horse that is on call and is waiting for you to give them the cue, rather than a horse that is trying to anticipate and has some level of anxiety of the job that you're asking of it. I apologize again for this edit clip. My cameraman's hands were getting a little chilly and he needed to take a quick break, so I just played game over for a few minutes and then we started recording again. This is one of my favorite things to do when I'm playing game over, is put him in a 360, and then he lopes out of it pretty darn quickly. He only took a few trot strides there, so he's really got a good understanding of coming out of a turn or a roll faster than he went in. He picked up the right lead for me, the correct lead for me coming out of that turn. That tells me he's getting more balance and he is staying in frame when I asked for that lead. He's a little speedier than I probably would have liked him to be loping this circle, but I haven't ridden him for very long yet either. And when they have this kind of impulsion, you kind of use it to your advantage. So I took that opportunity there to do a flying lead change with him, and I got a really nice one there. And I was kind of surprised myself after watching the video footage here. You know, he was wanting to be a little bit faster than I would have liked to him have been. He was being a little faster than I would have expected him to been, given that this is his third day in a row of riding. And I certainly don't want him to anticipate anything either, so I need to try to break it up as much as I can. And my other concern that I was having, I know this was going through my head, was my footing is not stellar. And I don't like to do very much speed work when my footing isn't the best. I'm a little bit chicken about it, and so I usually don't get too crazy about asking for too much when I know it's hard, rocky, you know, the potential of tripping and stumbling, falling, whatnot, you know, it's there. It's always there, but sometimes it's worse when you know the ground is hard, hasn't been worked and whatnot. And I was trying to right there, I was trying to break it up a little bit. I didn't want him to get any anticipation. I kind of dropped him into the lead, and by that, I mean I changed direction so quickly that I just kind of dropped his body over it. And so he didn't have as pretty of a lead change as he has been, but that's okay. I mean, it's all about teaching him the footwork at this point. They're going to get it. They're gonna figure it out, and this is preparing him for in the future rides when we are going to be tracking something at a pretty rapid pace through the pasture, and he's going to have to change leads, he's going to have to change directions, and he's going to have to figure out his own footwork. Because remember, we've talked about this in a couple of previous rides, that there's going to be a point there where I point him the direction to go, and I tell him how fast I need him to go, and he has to pay attention to the rocks, the holes, the cactus, the whatever that's out there. That's his job to pay attention to it, and it's his job to figure out how to maneuver his feet to the best that I've taught him up to this point. Okay? And that's what I want to emphasize is, all horses can do these maneuvers. All horses are talented and athletic. It's a matter of being able to do it with a rider on their back, when they're under pressure and when it counts. Can they do it when it counts? They all can be out in the pasture, and they all can jump up and go running across the pasture really quick and jump the creek or jump over a log or whatever, or miss a hole, or miss the fence line. It's doing it with a rider on their back when they're under pressure, and that's what I'm training for. And now look at how many different maneuvers we've done. Along with those flying lead changes, we brought him down to smaller circles. We loped smaller circles, we trotted smaller circles, we changed directions. We trotted smaller circles around the cones, we were off the rail. And I'm just going through the pole pattern right now just to, supple his body, get him softer in his body rather than having a straight, hard line. We threw a lot of stuff at him just now. And that's a lot more, and I believe it's invaluable compared to just loping plain old circles in your arena. So when I go back to that statement where, somebody says arena work is boring, I say your arena work is not interesting enough. You're not being creative enough. You don't have a big fat white cat crawling across your arena. You don't have a black dog constantly distracting your horse. When you can do that kind of stuff and work your horse and keep him working and performing, then you're ready to go to town, you're ready to go out, you're ready to go to the branding, and I'm getting a really nice counter arc right here. I started using that south rail down there. You could have seen me take his head slightly to that rail and bend him and still push him with that leg. I would have been pushing him with my left leg, driving him through. And I'm still trying to make this arc here. Counter arc him in the circle, take his head to the outside, and I'm trying to move his shoulders over. And so we're trying to loosen him up through his shoulders. So again, look at how many different things that we can throw at this horse in one single ride, and we're not out here just loping the same old boring circle. They would get really, really mad if they were just out here loping the same old boring circle. And I think for a rider, they would get bored as well. And so we have to challenge the horse, we have to challenge ourselves as a rider, and we have to challenge our own body parts for what our own body is capable of doing. Again, big white cat in the middle of the arena. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've been in a show where pigeons landed in the middle of the indoor arena. A pigeon in the middle of the indoor arena, and I was working a trail course, a versatility ranch trail course, and my colt He didn't spook at it, but he had to sit there and stare at it, and he lost his concentration and his focus. And so any little thing like that, you know, I welcome my dogs and cats in the arena most of the time. Little things like that, they're just going to make your horse better. It's frustrating as heck sometimes, and you have to work and address the problem as it's happening, but you just have to try and make yourself work through it. And he's struggling right now, counter arcing to the left, and we hadn't worked this side yet. And so I'm going to ask him for a couple steps, drop my reins, play game over, leave him alone for a second, and then I'll pick up and do it again. And until he figures this out, we're going to keep on asking him to do it at the walk. The walk is the explaining gait, okay? Anytime your horse is having a misunderstanding and he lacks confidence, you go back down to a walk and you explain it at the walk. This again is why game over is so important. If your horse cannot play game over, you can't explain simple procedures and techniques at a walk. Something else I want to point out as we look at his side profile as he walks. He's really relaxed through his neck. And that is so important to me, that they are relaxed through their neck. When horses get really on the muscle, really high anxiety, you usually get the head and neck elevated, and forget trying to have a headset whatsoever. They get really stiff through that lower side of their neck. And when they stiffen up through there, it makes it really difficult to get them quiet again and get them to go long and low and get a really nice stretch. I can't even begin to tell you how many horses I see that are so underdeveloped, not developed properly across the board because they don't know how to go long and low and be quiet. And they end up being U-shaped. And so the underlying neck muscle is really big, and the muscle that runs across the top, like their crest and their mane, that particular muscle is underdeveloped, and so then you end up creating this top line that just wants to be really U-shaped, and it's not effective for anything. It's not effective for balancing the rider, for performing in any gait, performing any sort of maneuver, and performing any sort of task. So we have to consider that from these very first foundational rides when we're putting the basic handle on them. So the maneuver that I had just done was something where I put two maneuvers together. I did an inside roll with a 360 on top of it, and that's just another way to get them listening to you. This is a really good stop right here. His inside hind really comes up underneath him there, and then I roll into the rail, and we didn't take the lead fast enough. He trotted too many strides, he fell out of frame, and he didn't pick up the correct lead. Again, I try it, and he's getting ready to pick up the wrong lead. I try to just roll him back into the fence, and he just locked up on me there a little bit, and I kind of threw something at him that he wasn't used to there, and we had a hard turn back and forth into that rail. And so I wanted to get him back on his toes again, listening to me, rolled out of it, got the correct lead that time. Sometimes you have to speed them up in order to get it properly and spank them on the hind to get that lead coming out of it that much faster. When they kind of get a little bit, I don't want to say lazy, but they start to lose impulsion. I mean, he's obviously getting a little bit tired and ridden down a little bit. He's losing some of that impulsion, so I'm losing that snap to him. And that's why I wasn't getting the lead as fast and quick as I wanted to when I came out of that rollaway. I played a lot of game over here for a little while, letting him catch his breath. And my gloves started to irritate me and I needed to take them off. And I had to tuck them in the pocket of my hooded sweatshirt. And you know what's really funny that I noticed since I've been in South Dakota is that the horses that are started in the winter and the cooler months, they learn how to deal with the sound of zippers going up and down. They deal with the sound of the swishy on a soft-shell jacket. They understand, about coats being handed off of them and whatnot. But the colts that are started in the summertime and the hottest months of the year when the bugs are so bad, those are the colts that are used to fly spray and baths and having the My Pretty Pony treatments. It's really interesting because depending on the time of year a colt comes to me, they're going to be accustomed to different things and different shenanigans that I do with them when I'm working with them. But little tidbit that I find entertaining. But anyway, at any rate, the gloves in my pocket of my sweatshirt wasn't going to work for me, so I had to leave them where they were at and go back to work without them. Now I'm trying to work that counter arc at a trot, and it's easiest to do when you use a rail for your crutch. Bend their head to the inside, take that rein that's closest to the rail up towards your opposite shoulder, use that inside leg to push them over, and you're just asking for a few steps at a time. Change it up, ask for a stop, a backup, an inside roll, and it breaks up the monotony of the game that you're working on. Work on something that he can do, that he has confidence doing, and then go back to asking him for the thing that you were trying to do that he couldn't quite figure out, couldn't quite do physically yet. He wants to push a little bit on my hands here. You can tell how I have to pull a little bit harder. When he comes around in this inside roll, he takes a step forward instead of back. He tucks his nose a little bit into his chest, and you can see a little bit of a mouth gap. And you can have somebody video you doing these maneuvers so you can figure out where you're at if you can't feel what's happening as it's happening, okay? And the easiest fix to that is just backing them up. So right here I ask for a counter arc. I've got his head to the inside rail. I'm using my right leg really hard, and then I'm pushing him off the rail and trying to put him in a circle in that counter arc. And then I let him straighten up, and from there I let him start to play game over, and I'm going to call it a day with that. Right here I was telling JD that I was going to go work the gate next. And I put him in another walk, and I decided to do one more roll with him. And this is where you use the direction to your advantage. So I start to put him in the turn and then ask him to come back around the direction that he wants to go anyway. And it makes the turn that much more efficient. So I was counter arcing him just slightly there, and he came through so much cleaner on his shoulders when he wanted to go the direction of the gate anyway, okay? So use those little tips and tricks to your advantage when you're out there riding. Now, he goes and takes a big long drink out of this water barrel here, and I let him. I will always let a horse take a drink of water. They've got to be pretty darn naughty, like kind of had a bucking session in order for me not to let them drink. but for the most part, I'm going to let them drink. And then he works the gate really nice here. Another textbook working the gate, and I dismount him right there so he understands that when he goes through that gate, slow-footed, steps around, sets himself up perfectly next to that gate, I am going to dismount him in the exact spot that I need him to be. Again, we're patterning him here, but we also want him to self-protect and do it this way because this is the way it's going to be done on him the rest of his life, with the exception of doing a left-handed gait. Right now we're teaching a right-handed gait. Alright, so not quite the ride that I wanted to have, but again, a wonderful diagnostic tool. Okay, editing Becky here. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. This is a perfect example of how sometimes what we feel in the saddle is very, very different than what is actually happening. So if there's anything that we can learn from this experience is that sometimes it's not as bad as we think it is or as we feel it is. So the next time you go out and ride in front of somebody or you ride by yourself and it feels like it's just a mess, rest assured it's probably not as bad as you thought it was. That's my plan, and thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and check out the other videos below. I will put all the links in the description box, and we got 2 more rides to go, and hopefully the true winter weather will wait for us to finish up. So hope you guys are having a good one. Till next time, thanks for watching.